baby. Saturdays in Lincoln, Nebraska. There is no place like Nebraska, and we'll be there on CBS on the 20th of September when the Michigan Wolverines make their way to Memorial Stadium to take on the Nebraska Huskers, 3:30 Eastern on CBS, streaming live on Paramount+. Looking into all the Big Ten teams on Spotlight. We started the week with Ohio State. We're finishing the week with that team up north from Michigan. We welcome in Sam Webb, the publisher for 24/7 Sports. He's our Michigan insider, and our college football analyst, Tom Fornelli. Okay, before we get to Michigan and the team and the season, what a massive day. Michigan's going to court, or at least going to the NCAA because of the sign stealing thing. This is incredible. It's starting today, Sam. What are the possible repercussions here? What's happening? Just fill me in on what's going on here.
Yeah, it's continuing today. You could call it a saga. It's what we started to call it. They're meeting with the committee on infractions today and tomorrow. It's the next stage in the process where Michigan basically gets to present its case. They get to be heard. And so you got Sharon Moore, you got the athletic director. They get to present their side. The NCAA hears them out, so to speak. And after they hear them out, they present their side, and then you enter the penalty phase where the two sides don't communicate for the next, 4 to 6, maybe 8 weeks if it takes that long. And it's over that period of time where the NCAA will determine what the penalty will be. As we know up to this point, we know that Michigan has proposed a 2-game penalty for Sharon Moore, self-imposed 2-game suspension. That is just a proposal at this point, where they've said that Sharon will sit out the Central Michigan and Nebraska games, which are games 3 and 4 for the season. Now, the NCAA, will they accept that, or will they come back and ultimately say they want to dole out more punishment? Odds are they will probably say something more or something different. Maybe they come back and say, we aren't going to let you cherry pick which games he sits out. Maybe they say, we want you to sit out games 1 and 2. Maybe they say, we want you to sit out 3 games. Maybe they say they want him to sit out more than that. Michigan will have the opportunity at that point to either accept the punishment or decide that they want to fight it. But today, or this part of the process, is just Michigan presenting its case, being heard out by the NCAA, and we'll see where things go after the hearing out process. This is the hearing out phase.
Yeah, and by the way, in that hearing out phase, Connor Stallions, the man at the center of this, was spotted at the NCAA offices. I mean, there's so much we can go in this. And by the way, we're not expecting a real decision from the committee for 8 to 12 weeks after this.
Right.
This is lasting a while. Don't hold your breath on any of this. They got to play some football. So can we talk some football? What's the biggest question mark on Michigan's offense this season, Sam?
Yeah, a lot of people point to the quarterback position, and understandably so. Is it going to be the wonderkid Bryce Underwood, the #1 quarterback in the country, or is it going to be the transfer Mikey Keene? I don't think that's the biggest question. I honestly believe that Bryce Underwood is going to be the quarterback, and that's why I'm leaning towards the biggest question being the offensive line. Does Michigan have the kind of offensive line that can be a stalwart, that can protect a freshman quarterback in a way that can pave the way for a running game that can protect him, that for a passing game that can, propel a team to a championship level? But you got to be able to keep him safe, to keep him secure, to make him comfortable in a way that most freshmen aren't going to be. And Michigan didn't have that kind of offensive line last year. So you got a lot of question marks. Big-time question mark at left tackle, question mark at right guard. They said that, Sharon said, coming out of the spring ball, that he had 3 certainties. Felt good at center with Greg Crippen, felt good at right tackle with Andrew Sprague, felt good at left guard with Giovanni Ohadi. Well, if you got a big question mark at left tackle, the blind side of your quarterback, that's the biggest question mark on your team, feels like to me. That's a huge problem for Michigan heading into, I think, into fall camp. And then, of course, you got to find your right guard. That's a huge deal to me for Michigan heading into this season.
You know, when I look at the Michigan offense, I agree with you, Sam. I do think there are a lot of questions on the offensive line that need to be answered, but I kind of think there are questions all over this roster on the offensive side of the ball because we know they got Donovan McCulley from Indiana, who I think is a very solid player who will be probably the alpha receiver on that team, but they also got Justice Haynes in the transfer portal from running back. You mentioned all the turnover on that offensive line and the questions about who will be starting, but I still think what you started with is the biggest question. Bryce Underwood or Mikey Keene? You went and got Keene in the portal, I felt like, for that kind of experience, but he was hurt. He wasn't practicing this spring because of it. Underwood got most of the reps with the first team in the spring. Was that enough to kind of help establish him as a starter going into the year? I don't know, but we've got a lot of tough games early on that schedule, and you wonder if they're going to want to be relying on a true freshman, as talented as he is, going on the road to Oklahoma in his second game as a college player. So it'll be interesting to see what decision Sherrone Moore ultimately makes there.
Sam, biggest question for the Michigan D?
Yeah, you go over to the defensive side of the ball. They obviously lost a lot going to the NFL draft, a loaded defense last year to beat Ohio State, but they returned a lot. Playmakers at every level of that defense. But I'm looking at the corner position where they returned a couple of guys, and Zeke Berry, who was at safety, was at nickel, but moved over to corner and really settled in. And then Jair Hill at the other corner, who's maybe one of the most talented guys on that defensive side of the ball. But after that, what do you really have? A guy in Caleb Anderson who transferred over from University of Louisiana Lafayette, and then a guy in JoJo Edmond who was a freshman last year. You don't really have a lot of depth at that corner position. I think Michigan is dangerously thin at that spot. That is a huge problem for Michigan. Biggest question is that corner depth on the defense.
If we're being honest, not a whole lot was expected out of Michigan coming off that national championship and losing Jim Harbaugh. But now we're going into year 2 under the new regime. Tom, how much pressure is on the Michigan coach now?
I mean, I think anytime you're the head coach at Michigan, you're under quite a bit of pressure, but you're even under more so because of how things went last year. If expectations dropped and nobody was expecting a national title, you were still hoping for something better than 8-5. But the problem last year was you had putrid quarterback play, and you still managed to win 8 games, including wins over Ohio State and Alabama to end the season. So I think that kind of alleviates some concerns heading into this year. And you look at that team, and as we've discussed, they've lost a lot of players from that national title team over the last 2 seasons. There will be a lot of new faces in, but Michigan has recruited well over the last few years. They've also developed really well. So there's a certain kind of floor that you expect this program to have. And I think that unless things go completely haywire, Sherrone Moore doesn't really have to worry too much. I don't think that unless things are awful, that they're going to look at him after 2 years and say, we need to make a move. That said, if they don't show some signs of improvement, and if Bryce Underwood does not perform and give them reasons to be optimistic about their ability to compete for a Big Ten title in 2026, maybe he enters year 3 with a little bit of a hot seat.
I think the expectation is for Michigan to be improved this year. I think they expect Michigan to carry over from last year and really to have a better record than last year's team. Now, to me, the limiting factor is if Sherrone is on the sideline for a decent portion, more than 2 games. If that winds up being the case, then that could be something that tethers the record and sidelines the season a bit. But absent that, I think the expectation is for Michigan to win more than 8 games and to be a playoff contender this year. The expectation is for the position at Michigan, meaning the head coaching position at Michigan. I think Sherrone Moore is staring that squarely in the face and expecting that to be his position, contending for a playoff spot this year at the University of Michigan.
Pressure and expectations always high in Ann Arbor from within. Tom, what do you expect the Wolverines to do this year?
Yeah, the good news is I do think the record will be better in 2025 than it was in 24. It's just I don't think it'll be good enough to get them to the college football playoff. I think what we're going to see, as I mentioned, with Bryce Underwood, if he's a starter, it's a freshman quarterback, a true freshman quarterback. There will be growing pains. And as you can see, I think that early in the year, we're going to see them taking some of those lumps with those road games against Oklahoma, Nebraska, and USC. But after that, I think the schedule lightens up considerably, and I think that they would have a very strong finish to the regular season season. And at the end, yes, I have them beating Ohio State again, because until Ohio State beats Michigan, I am not going to give them the credit for doing so, especially when the game is being played in Ann Arbor. So I do see a 9-3 kind of season, but I don't think that'll be enough to get him into the college football playoff, but who knows?
You got him winning 6 straight at the end of the season and beating Ohio State and not getting into the playoff. You're going to end up with some angry Wolverines fans. Sam Webb, Tom Fornelli, gentlemen, thank you so very much. And hey, check out the Cover 3 podcast. Tom Fornelli, part of it, with Chip Patterson, Bud Elliott, Danny Cannell, whole host of dudes. It's all things college football. It's the Cover 3 podcast. Check it out wherever you podcast.